Hi, welcome to LightSpeed Academy. I'm Jim Cooper and thanks for joining me for this LightSpeed session on React component basics. Components are the basic building blocks of a React application. So let's create our first component, which will be the beginnings of our Outpost page where we'll sell space travel gear. So in our new React app, I'm going to create a new Outpost component by first creating a new Outpost folder in my source folder. Creating a folder for your components isn't required, but it does help with organization later on. Now in here, I'm going to create a new outpost.js file. This will become the Outpost component, or our Outpost page. The most simple component is simply a function that returns JSX. And then you just need to export that as the default export. For older versions of React, you'll also need to import React like this. But as of React version 17, this is no longer necessary. And that's it. We just created a very simple but complete React component. I can now hop over to my app component and import my new Outpost component like this. And the casing of this imported variable is important. React requires components to start with an uppercase letter so that it can distinguish them from regular HTML elements. And now down here, I can delete all this default content and just render my Outpost component using this Outpost import as an HTML tag like this. And now I can delete these other unused imports up here. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to delete the content of this app.css file. We're no longer using this file, but we will use it soon, so I'll leave it here. Eventually, our Outpost page is going to look like this. And notice that we have two main sections, a main content area and a sidebar area for displaying our card. So back in our Outpost component, let's actually return two divs like this. The first div will have an H1 header with Outpost text, and the second div will have an H2 header with cart text. But you can see we have an error here because a React component can only return a single top-level HTML element. So we could wrap this content in a div like this, so that our component is now just returning a single div with content inside of it. But this adds an extra div to our final HTML that is unnecessary. So React has a special element called a fragment that we can use like this. And its whole purpose is for wrapping content like this so that you can return a single element and it doesn't actually render anything on the page. Okay, let's take a look at what this is rendering in our browser. All right, so this looks nothing like our end goal because we haven't added any styling, but you can see our new component is working and it's rendering the content we put in it. So that's the very basics of components. Components really are just as simple as a function that returns JSX. It is worth noting, however, that there is also a class syntax that you may see in use in existing React code bases. So this is what this component would look like as a class-based component. Notice that instead of exporting a function, we're exporting a class. And that class extends React.component and has a render function that returns the JSX. However, class-based components are harder to work with, and so the community is definitely moving to using the more simple function-based components that you see above. And that's what we'll be using for the rest of this playlist. So I'll delete that and we'll keep our function component. And that's it for React component basics. If you want to keep learning React, here is the next video on styling React components. And here is the entire LightSpeed React playlist. And of course, like and subscribe if you'd like to see other content we're putting together. And thanks, and keep learning at LightSpeed.